What is up everyone, it's Saber here and welcome to another Naruto What If you end up liking the video, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can take it back at any time and it really helps me out, and this is my main channel, so if you're interested in what if Naruto had Madara and the Kyuubi sealed inside of him, or what if Naruto was half Viltrumite and half Saiyan, go check out my main channel. And if you're interested in what if Naruto was neglected and joined the Straw Hat Pirates, or what if Naruto had crystal release, go check out my third channel. And with all of the YouTube formalities out of the way, let's get into it. Life was such a mysterious thing. You can make plans for tomorrow, even go into great measures to ensure that your plans for the day ahead come into fruition, but when the forces of nature didn't want any of those plans to come to reality, no matter what you attempt to do, nothing will ever work out well. That is what most people believed anyway. Gaara didn't believe there was such a thing as fate, but he believed that one could make his own destiny. Of course, there are always forces that will always try to stand in the way, but nothing ever beats determination and the unwavering will to succeed through it all. The beginning of a journey can be easy and it marked by many things. Only those who have enduring patience and unwavering faith and hope only make it through. The fifth Kazekage hadn't masterminded his own rise to leadership, but their circumstances, which he found himself in, pushed him into this seat. He knew for certain that even though the Council of Sunagakure had put him as Kazekage, it was only because of his power. Certainly if they wanted someone matured and experienced in terms of leadership, they could have as well chosen Baki. He was experienced and commanded respect from other jonins. He had also worked well with the previous Kazekage. He had been the fit candidate to be Kazekage, yet they chose him, an inexperienced shinobi who was feared by most of the villagers, and a child no less. They used him, but didn't actually think that he would do so well as Kazekage. They didn't think that a mere child like him would lead this hidden village in such a manner as he'd been. They thought putting him in power was a way to silence him and keep him from destroying the village, but he'd gone beyond their expectations. Though some still feared him, he was loved by many, and many showed him so much respect he thought he didn't deserve. He's been a Kage for some time now, and after everything he'd been doing, steering Sunagakure into the right path, patching the broken relationships between his village and Konohagakure, as well as the daimyo Hisabaku no Gaara, the youngest Kage in the history of the shinobi world, had succeeded in doing all that, but his journey had yet to begin. All that had been just the foundation. Right now he could see where Sunagakure was going, he could see where he was going, he could see the future, and it looked pleasant. Not long ago he had no future, everything was blurry and his life scrappy, miserable even, but now he had something, he was something, and that made him feel at ease. Gaara turned away from the window. He had been looking outside through the window inside his office in the Kazekage Tower. He turned back to his seat as his sister entered his office. Without a word he motioned for her to sit down so that they could talk. After taking his seat, Gaara initiated the conversation. Tamari, he started, keeping that blank look on his face. Are you seeing anyone? Tamari simply have her brother stare. Gaara stared back. Silence reigned after Tamari realized that her brother hadn't been possessed by a demon to make a joke, and that he was actually serious. Her dearest brother, who has never, not even once or even attempted to ask anything about her personal, and she might even add that he doesn't even have a personal life of his own, had just asked her if she was dating anyone. This was coming from the impassive Sabaku no Gaara, the man who couldn't laugh. It was just unbelievable that her brother would ask such a question. Tamari quickly realized that he wouldn't have asked her unless he had something in his mind. It would freak her out, even give her nightmares, if her brother suddenly chose to become interested in her personal affairs. She knew well enough that any guy who came close to her would be investigated thoroughly to ensure that he didn't have any evil intentions, and if he had, the conclusion was obvious. Sabaku Soso, in a more plain way of saying it, a quick painless death. It often amused Tamari just how protecting her brother was. He would certainly threaten any man with death if they ever hurt her or even come close to doing it. It was good that she focused on her work than looking for man to fool around with. Tamari snorted when she realized that she would never even get that chance, as anyone would be scared away by the imposing stare of her impassive brother. What brings this up? Her arms were now folded across her chest, face stern. She gave him the kind of look that dared him to say something stupid unless he wanted to get his head banged up by the cold steel of her fan. Gaara wasn't the least intimidated by the stare. His own expression never even changed. Answer my question, Tamari, he said. It wasn't like it was her brother asking her, but the Kazekage, of course. That still didn't change anything to Tamari. No, the blonde answered. She was fairly certain that he wasn't going to back down from until he got an answer, and trying to talk him out was no different than praying to the dead gods for Naruto to forget one of the promises he made. What of Shikamaru? I thought there was something there. Tamari took her time before responding, and Gaara didn't rush. He just kept staring right into her eyes, unblinking. Why are you asking? Gaara, if he was going to be that way, then she could be like that. She was just as stubborn as he was. She was willing to allow the battle of his sand and her fan to play out before she could give in. Figuratively, of course. Gaara didn't take a second to respond to her question. I want you to do something, but of course you have to agree to it before you do it. If not, then we can look at other options. What? Tamari's voice was dangerously low as she was getting a sense of where her brother was taking this kind of conversation. I want you to marry Naruto. What? Tamari was now on her feet, hands pressed firmly against the Kazekage's desk upper body, leaned forward a bit to get a closer at the man she called a brother. It was outrageous for him to even suggest such a thing. What did he think of her? Gaara just continued like his sister wasn't giving him a death glare and was very close to attempting to tear him to pieces politically. Of course you will be under no obligation whatsoever to be a real wife to him or even touch him, though political marriages to carry backlashes when broken off. We will create a loop in the contract that will allow your marriage to be called off after a period of time on mutual agreement from both parties. That would only happen if she doesn't fall in love with Naruto before that time. You think your reasoning makes it okay? What if I am in a relationship? Gaara stared at his sister blankly for a few moments before he responded. That is precisely why I asked you if you were seeing anyone. While I understand that something like that won't be easy, I'm still not forcing you to do anything. Like I said, the marriage will only be on paper. Does Naruto know anything about it? She hoped he could say yes just so she could have a good reason to explode right on his face, but his response disappointed her greatly. To some extent it knocked off some of her energy and she slumped back to her chair. No, Gaara said with a shake of his head. Naruto knows nothing about it. This isn't the first time you're proposing I marry Naruto. Last time Naruto managed to deal with that wretched scumbag. What is your reason this time, brother? She gave Gaara a look that clearly told him that his answer better be good, or he would face her wrath. Naruto is going to rebuild Uzumaki. May be powerful in his position as the president of the UN, may give him some political power, but the UN is still an infant. It could crumble tomorrow and it hasn't achieved anything. It will take time for most of the shinobi world and even other nations to recognize the UN. Right now it has started smoothly because Naruto knows most of the leaders in a personal level. If Naruto is going to be successful in rebuilding Yuzu, if he is going to attract people into Yuzu and affirm his standing, he needs to be connected. A friendship is seen as a fickle thing in the shinobi world and is easily broken, but if we connect you, a sister, to the Kazekage, daughter of the previous Kazekage, we will give him more field to work. This will further the relationship between Yuzu, Naruto, the UN and Suna. A marriage will expel any doubts people may have about our relationship. Tamari absorbed it all silently. While this represents a good chance to strengthen our bond with Naruto, it will loosen our ties with Konoha. We're Naruto's main supporters, and Konoha will not support his choice to rebuild his ancestral home. I understand that fully, Gaara said, but this is also works well for us too. There are still many doubters, but if we strengthen our relationship with Naruto, we ally ourselves with a powerful man. Naruto's friends will become out friends, though I am not proud to say this. We're the ones who will be taking advantage of him. Naruto will get in a good word for us to other nations, and we will get more allies, which will greatly strengthen Tsunagakure. Naruto has already organized a meeting with Princess Koyoki, which I will try to acquire her advanced technology amongst other resources. The snow. As Gaara paused for a moment before adding one last detail, if things go well, Naruto and I will create a technological company which will hopefully become the largest in the shinobi world, that would drive more infrastructural growth within Suna and Yuzu. It would increase their exports and bring more flow of money into the village when they sell their products. It looked as though he was blackmailing his sister, but Gaara wasn't. He just wanted her to know all his reasons, and he knew that Naruto could be trusted with his sister. If anything, he would rather have her live forever with the blonde and Yuzu than pursuing a relationship with Shikamaru. You're still going to tell Naruto everything? Tamari stated. There was no doubt her brother wouldn't withhold any of the information he just told her from Naruto. He was an honest person. After all, you know, I'd always known I'd be used as a political tool for marriage, since I am the only daughter of our father and now the only sister to the current Kazekage. You're not a tool, Tamari, not to me, and don't see yourself as such. This is just a phase that will pass. You also have a choice to say no, and even if you say yes, you will still maintain your free will. You will still do what you wish. I've already told you, haven't I? You will not be required to make this an actual marriage. Tamari didn't give a response. She merely stood up. I'm going to get some air, she said. Gaara didn't object. He allowed her to leave without saying another word to her hideout. In all his life, Sasuke had never felt so excited than this. Today he was going to see his traitorous brother and finally get his revenge. He would be able to kill Itachi and focus on other things. The thought of killing his brother brought forth a dark chuckle from the back of his mind. Jubi had been faithful to his word. He had his weird subordinate lead him to this hideout his brother used. He was told this was the place Itachi even trained Naruto. Of course, the thought pressed all the red buttons within his mind, but he hadn't fully believed it, not until his traitorous brother said so with his own mouth. Then he would fully believe it. Sasuke finally jumped down into a clearing appearing at the back of the hideout where the training ground was stationed. He immediately stopped when he saw his brother sitting in the middle of the training ground in a meditative position. It was as if he had been expecting him to arrive, as if reading Sasuke's mind. Itachi spoke. Hello Sasuke-kun. I have been waiting for you. He'd only known because Shur had told him of the development. If it hadn't been for him, Sasuke would have probably found him lying in bed. Sasuke narrowed his eyes slightly before offering a casual response. It seems so, he said. Itachi smiled at his foolish brother. You've been chasing after me for a long time and I kept running away from you, but now I won't run away, so if you want answers before we fight, sit down. Earth Country. It wasn't often that Naruto felt so much excitement at the chance of playing politics and trouncing within hostile territory. But today was a little different. He couldn't help but smile at the thought of playing the role of a leader in Owagakure. The UN's General Assembly had only been a few days ago, and he was already working on other matters. He wanted to solve the mess with Owagakure, and even when he knew that he would most likely not get anything from Inoki than a demand for his humiliating death, he was still going to visit the man on a diplomatic mission. He wasn't in the village to fool around. He was here as president of the UN and a delegate of Amagakure, so even though the village had put a bounty on his head, they couldn't do anything to him on this visit without sparking an international incident. He was here on diplomatic terms, and that gave him immunity of any crime or persecution on this land. Naruto was currently on a path towards the village hidden in rocks. His current road was a land filled with nothing but small hills. In an uneven ground flanking both his sides were two men as guards for this mission. Normally he wouldn't accept guards to accompany him anywhere as he normally teleported, but since the matter was unique, guards were deployed for his protection. Appearing without guards while on a diplomatic mission would have only infuriated Owagakure to do something stupid. While he may have been tempted to do so for his own safety, he decided against it, as he would only give himself more problems should they do something idiotic. Because of his daring appearance, he was a little surprised that Inoki would accept his request to have a meeting and discuss the problem that faced the Tsuchikage nation and him. He didn't dare think that the man would have accepted his call just to invite him into the lion's den. He hadn't specifically requested for the meeting to be held within the walls of Owagakure, but Inoki had requested as such, and he didn't object. This gave him a chance to have a look at this great nation. There was no mistake that Owagakure was a great nation, and Naruto didn't fool himself to think otherwise. Owagakure had as much history as other great nations, and one thing he'd found about this village was that its Kages always lived long lives compared to the Kages of other hidden villages. Konan-sama gave me this final instruction: don't behave like a child in front of the Tsuchikage and be safe. The guard on his right said as the gates of Owagakure came into view. One of the guards that were with him was from Amagakure, since this matter dealt with the village in Owagakure. He was here standing in the name of Yuzo Amagakure and the UN, not the UNA. If he had been here for the latter, then he would have been forced to ask permission from the UNA's executive committee, which would have been bothersome since all leaders would have to be gathered. The easy way to do that was to bypass that by going through the disciplinary committee. Naruto had played it the smart way by transferring all members of the UN to the UNA. The only members of the UN were now only Amagakure, Sunagakure, Karagakure, and the soon-to-be rebuilt Uchiha. These villages would be the core members of the UN and ensure that the UN kept financed. Each member of the aforementioned villages was a member of the UN's NEC. After all, even when the membership of other villages was transferred to the UNA, it didn't mean that they were no longer affiliated with the UN. They were affiliated with it, and that is what bound the UN to work within their borders, and an overseer of the UNAI will behave. Though I am a little excited than I should be. Finished and thought honestly he should be worried about the matter rather than be happy about it. Inoki was probably going to tell him that he would keep hunting him until his head dropped down the ground with eyes turned upside down. He understood that Konan was worried since the results of the meeting would affect her village greatly, but she trusted him enough to allow him to negotiate on her behalf. It wasn't that things were great between Amagakure and Owagakure. No, it was far from that. In simple words, it can be said that the relationship between the two villages was hostile and didn't look to cool down anytime soon unless some intervention colored both sides. Kuratsuchi was very infuriated with me though, Naruto added in thought. She will no doubt want to be involved and will offer me nothing but hostility and curses, yet that didn't faze him. In fact, he couldn't wait for it. Perhaps he felt that he deserved it after what he did. He wouldn't be happy if his own men were killed on his watch, but he would understand that it was a battle and wouldn't waste his energy seeking something destructive as revenge. There was more to life than revenge and a thirst for blood. Let us just hope that we will not have a cat fight once that talks begin, the man on the other side said, though he wouldn't say it aloud. It would be interesting to see the cat fight. The reason it wouldn't be good was that it would only complicate things Further, I doubt things will reach that point, Naruto said. Though Inoki is very stubborn, he isn't stupid by any means, and neither is Kuratsuchi. They are going to play this smart, though I don't think Kuratsuchi will be afraid to slap me if I say something she doesn't like, regardless of how things looked. Even if she slapped him, he wouldn't do anything or even assault her. Assaulting her would only paint a bad image of him, and since he had become used to the role of president of the UN and soon to be leader of Uzushiga, and as a peace-loving person he wanted to stay away from violence. That didn't mean that he would stay away from training or even spars. It was contradicting. He wanted to stay away from violence, but yet would continue to sharpen his knives. The contradiction was something that Naruto would have to live with, because in this world he would have to fight. There were many battles that lay ahead. To be thinking of putting down weapons, it wouldn't be a surprise. The man on the right said, if you hit back, others will get involved, and an accident may likely occur. If that happens, we will have a major scandal that will only make unwanted tensions. Iwagakure knew that Naruto was only coming to them because Amigakure didn't want a war, and he didn't want to die so soon. Knowing of his ideals as well, they would take advantage of it to try to get what they wanted, but Naruto wasn't going to give in like that. He was expecting the blonde to return to Yuzu as happy as he is now. Let us hope things will take a favorable way, Naruto said as comfortable silence reigned. They had slowed down their pace since they could very well see the gates of their destination clearly. More energy needed to be reserved, as they would be traveling back home in a few hours or minutes unless Naruto decided to teleport, but traveling on foot was better since they got to study the Earth's country geography. Staying here for the day would only be inviting accidents, and they didn't want any of that. It was important that they leave in one piece and as peacefully as they came. It was no doubt that a few stones may be thrown at Naruto if he was allowed to take a walk in the streets of the village. It was unlikely that Inoki would allow such a thing, as it would only serve to infuriate the villagers, and they were likely to run riot. That was something you didn't want as a leader. The guard on the right, Ryo, raised a curious brow at the number of Umbu that were patrolling at the gates. They were not traveling stealthily. To say that the Umbu patrolling at the outskirts of the village wouldn't have noticed their presence, and their presence in the village was planned. Still, he didn't think Inoki would send the whole cavalry to welcome them into the village. That Tsuchikage wasn't present himself. Aside from the hidden Umbu, Ryo could see and sense potentially 10 jonin who were at the gates. Aside from the normal gatekeepers, it was almost amusing, as it seemed like they were waiting for a dangerous criminal being brought into the village by a squad of S-rank hunter nins. They were just 3 and weren't carrying any weapons with them, not even a kunai or a shuriken pouch. Despite being guards for this mission, Naruto had them leave their weapons behind. Not even he was carrying a single weapon. He had even temporarily sealed off his storage seal, a seal which contained all his weapons: kunais, shurikens, swords, Horatian kunais. We are going to discuss a peace treaty between the Iwagakure and AIM. Why should we carry weapons like we're going for war? That was the question he had asked them when they questioned the need to leave their weapons. Although this was dangerous to their safety, Naruto had assured them that the path they were going to take was safe. Ashur had drawn up a safe route which had them avoid any camp while traveling towards this village. Even if something had come on, Naruto told them they would have to fight with their bare hands or make a run for it. Ryo didn't like the idea of running away from the enemy, but he understood that Naruto wasn't exactly saying they should run. He was emphasizing that they were going to fight with their hands if an enemy does come, and the only reason they would be fighting with their bare hands was that they would not be fighting to kill but to subdue the enemy who wants to harm them. No killing unless given the order. This was one of the rules of the UCC and the UN police force. The police force's job was not to kill but to maintain peace and order by arresting those who threaten the peace. There are those dangerous criminals who were beyond repair. Those were left for the UCC and the Covert Corps could cross that boundary. Being a member of the police force meant that one could run away from the shinobi life. It was possible to live your life in the police force and retire without spilling anyone's blood. This was the kind of force that one wouldn't think twice of sending one's child into joining, since they wouldn't be faced with bloodshed. Naruto's goal was to have shinobi reduced and replaced with police force who operated by a code of good ethics and morality. Halt. Predictably, the guards forced them to halt their movements before they could even set foot in their village, despite it being obvious that they were clearly waiting for them to arrive. Ryo nearly rolled his eyes when the guards proceeded to ask them who they were and they wanted, while simultaneously sending murderous glare at Naruto, who was oblivious to the glares as he continued smiling a bit carelessly. Naruto answered the obvious questions with a smile and even went on to tell their names to the guards. Ryo hadn't thought that Naruto would do that, since he could have just told them it was for their own safety that their names keep hidden. Reasons didn't need to be given, they would understand the meaning of the words. But the blonde carelessly told their names and even went on to produce the required documents while keeping a smile that was noticeably annoying the guards and the jonins around them. Once that was cleared, a full squad of Umbu flashed around them before stepping into the front to face Naruto. You're coming with us, despite the tone being monotone. It clearly lacked respect amongst other things, and the man wasn't making a request, he was clearly demanding. Ryo wanted to object such attitude towards Naruto, but the blonde silenced him by a right hand waving him off. What of these two? The Umbu had clearly singled him out, so he was curious of what would be done about his guards. The Umbu responded in the same monotone voice earlier. They will be sent to a hotel and locked until you finish your talks with Tsuchikage-sama, the Umbu said. Besides, we wouldn't want anything happening to them when they are still within the protection of the Tsuchikage. Load of bull, Ryo thought distastefully. They just wanted to keep them from watching over Naruto as well, keep them from exploring much of the village. It was no doubt that word would travel soon, but unless someone pointed at them, then even zombies would be after them. Nevertheless, they were both Umbu level shinobi, so they would be able to defend themselves while securing an escape route. Fine, I will accept this, Naruto responded. After a few moments of silence, behave you two, he said. Both men nodded in affirmative of the order. If Naruto wasn't complaining, they wouldn't complain either. The Umbu captain then walked closer to Naruto before placing his hand on the blonde's shoulder, and they then disappeared. The remaining Umbu stayed behind to show Naruto's guards the way to the hotel. Ryo sighed. Despite appearances, they had assumed that something of this nature would occur. He just hoped that nothing happened to Naruto while they were confined in the hotel. They could have refused to leave Naruto's side, but Iwagakure was counting on the fact that it was them who actually needed these talks to be a success. They could just continue as they have been without worry. However, they did understand that things couldn't stay as they were for the long run. The UN will only become stronger as it stays, and Naruto will also become powerful by virtue of being of the UN's leader and founder by then. Killing him will only become harder, and if they do succeed, they will only be inviting the wrath of his many allies. Sighing once more, Ryo nodded to his comrade, and they allowed themselves to be led towards the hotel Tsuchikage office. Inoki kept a stern face as he waited for Naruto to appear before him and his granddaughter. He didn't want Kuratsuchi to be present, but she had forced her way in the damn meeting, because it was her men that Naruto had killed, and she had to be here when he spoke, as he had to answer to her for his actions. What he did know was that she only wanted revenge for the embarrassment she faced, and there was the Yondaime thing. The thought even made him sigh inwardly. While he held no hatred to Minato for what happened during the Third Shinobi World War, he couldn't let the fact that Naruto killed many of his men over things that didn't concern him and outside of his territory. He had spoken to the Lord of the Rain country about the matter using technicalities. He could say they were allowed by Lord of Rain to match over his country. Naruto wasn't within his bounds to stop his match, and thus was the guilty party. Intentions didn't really matter. If they were speaking about technicalities in the matter, he would be facing a major backlash. If his army had actually been successful in getting into Amigakure, then those people would surely make some crazed demands that he would be forced to follow. As it stood, he could deny that he was ever intending to invade Amigakure, or he could just say the Rain Lord hired him because he didn't have any control nor a say in the village, despite it being located within his country. But that still didn't make things any more favorable than they were now. In all honesty, he was interested in hearing what the blonde had to say. If he was saying that they were planning to invade Amigakure, then he would have to prove it with tangible evidence, not theoretical evidence that hold no power over him. Still, he would rather have the blonde die than anything. Their pressure from the people was becoming too much for his old mind, and his shoulders were no longer strong as they used to be able to hold off the burdens. Yet he refused to retire. His narrow look turned onto his granddaughter, who was likely going to be his successor. She had a rather focused look on her face, probably sorting out her thoughts. He thought mildly. Kuratsuchi's body tensed slightly as an Umbu flashed into the room with Naruto. The Umbu didn't say anything, then a slight bow before leaving the office. Her gaze became scrutinizing when she noticed just what exactly it was that he was wearing. He was wearing Kage robes, but instead of the traditional white, his were blood red and a few lines of white. He even dared to have the hat loose at the back of his neck. What is the meaning of this? Inoki demanded sternly with a heated glare. It was just outrageous for someone who isn't a Kage to wear those robes. It was an insult to them Kages, and he wasn't going to allow blasphemy like this to occur before his very eyes. How do you wear Kage robes? Do you even know what wearing those robes mean? Where did you even get them anyway? Kuratsuchi threw in a few questions while she gave Naruto the same glare as her grandfather gave the blonde. She felt her stomach twist when Naruto's blue eyes only glowed vibrantly as his lips parted into a happy smile. It was like he was acting ignorant to their glares, like he didn't see them, or he had just brushed them aside. The thought made her blood boil at his boldness, and she gritted her teeth in frustration. Even she wouldn't smile like that when facing such heated glares. Naruto's tone was light, a bit careless, but calm when he responded. He was also checking out the robes, touching them at both sides as he spoke. Apparently the leader of Uzushigakure wore this robes. I found them while searching through the ruins. Since each leader of Yuzu wore them, I thought, why not? Besides, it really feels nice when wearing them. He was a Complete opposite of what he was back then when he killed off her many men during that battle. This wasn't the cold-hearted man she witnessed run through her men like a machine going through maize during the harvesting season. He had killed her men mercilessly. Even though he looked sad during the end of the battle, he had still done the deed. It was just insulting to her and her fallen men for him to stand up and talk like that, as if the world is free, and that nothing ever happened. She felt sickened by the sight of his smile and his careless tone. How could he smile while the families of her men were crying at the loss of their loved ones? How could he be like that when she was crying and seething in the inside because of his actions? If anything, she should be rejoicing, and he should be the one feeling what she was currently feeling. If she could, she would project the images of his gruesome death in her hands and see if he would still be smiling. Inoki was not the least amused by Naruto's response. It even showed in his tone that he wasn't a happy man. You said only leaders of Uchiha wore those robes, and until recently Yuzu was nothing but ruins after the invasion that destroyed it during the Second Shinobi World War. Naruto nodded. Yes, I didn't mistake that, he said. His smile grew by a few inches, his eyes became closed, and some embarrassment flashed upon his face while he scratched the back of his head. I traveled all the way from Amigakure without taking a rest, and I'm really tired. Is it okay if I take a seat? Inoki was tempted to have the boy remain standing as he knew it would only please his granddaughter, but he sighed and motioned for the blonde to take a seat. Why are you wearing those robes? The last time he hadn't been specific, and so he figured he didn't get a response he was looking for from Naruto. Because of it, Naruto waved his hand dismissively, while managing to make it look like he was careless so that he didn't offend Inoki by a clear dismissal of his question. That is a subject for another day. Sandaime-sama, he said politely, his smile now thin. How are the two of you doing anyway? And this, if my memory serves me right, is the first time we meet. Sandaime-sama managing to twist the polite question into an insult. Kuratsuchi sneered before responding in a sarcastic manner. We are delightful, couldn't you tell? Naruto cocked his head to the right, all while staring at the black-haired woman. Nah, I couldn't tell, he said, despite knowing she was being sarcastic. Of course, that did nothing but increase the intensity of Kuratsuchi's glare leveled at him. I'm also well, thanks for asking, the blonde finished, returning his eyes to the Tsuchikage. Kuratsuchi continued to glare at him at the thought that he was mocking her, and adding to her growing frustrations, her glare was doing nothing to unsettle him. He still remained perfectly calm and looked a lot more comfortable than she would like of him. If he could just drop dead to the ground and die, then she would at least relax. She wouldn't be satisfied as nothing but his death in her hands would satisfy her. Can we get on to the business of the day? Naruto asked quietly. Inoki nodded, his look still stern, gaze hardened. Talk, he instructed. He was the one who called for this meeting. Naturally, he should be the one to have things to say to them. Having his face on their bingo book was their message, and it was clear even to the dim-minded. I want you to remove my name from your bingo books, Naruto said calmly. Kuratsuchi laughed. It was nothing more than a bitter laughter. Are you retarded? Do you really think we are just going to take off your name and call off all attempts for your capture just like that? Her lips twisted into cold smile. Your name will be removed once I get your head on the palm of my hand. Trying to be sensible, Inoki shifted from his granddaughter's way of thinking and asked a question. Why should we do that? My name is only there because you're a proud man who can't accept what happened. I don't need to prove that you were trying to invade Amigakure. Both of us know that. And because I was successful in repelling your invasion, you have branded me as a criminal. Why? Simply because I protected my ally and killed some of your men. If your men had succeeded in reaching Amigakure, Konan would have killed them all, and she would have taken things personally before striking back. Tell me, would you have branded her as a criminal for protecting her people against your wrongs? I don't need to tell you that invading another village unprovoked is wrong. The deaths of your men are your own fault. Take responsibility. I mean this to both of you. I warned you, Kuratsuchi, but you didn't listen. Do you fault me even after I warned you? Do you fault me even when you know trying to invade AIM was wrong in all sense of the word? You're blaming me for their deaths even when you're the one who killed them. Kuratsuchi looked shocked by his words. Even her eyes were wide in shock. That is all according to interpretation, Naruto said. There are consequences to each choice. Kuratsuchi-san, you made a choice to continue even after I warned you to return. You made a choice to invade another village. Didn't you ever think that your men would die? Didn't you ever think that Amigakure would defend itself? How naive. Your grandfather has lived past many wars, and if he can't understand what I am saying, then the wars haven't taught him anything. But considering how far this village has come, I would say he has obtained much wisdom. But it is only his stubbornness, pride, and the pressure from the villagers that make him side with you. Correct me if I am wrong, Sandaime-sama. The look on Naruto's face and his words really caught the Tsuchikage off guard. He wasn't expecting such a young fellow to slap the truth into his face like this. The blonde wasn't talking politics or anything, just plain truth that wasn't even colored. There were consequences for every action and choices. He had ripped his fruits after trying to get into Amigakure forcefully. He understood that in war both sides lose. Something in that he wouldn't have branded Konan a criminal or even demand for her head because she had protected her own village. He had been wrong to make that move, and this boy was telling it like it was. He had demanded compensation from Konoha, and they were ready to discuss things out as they didn't want a war with his village. They didn't even have the courage to tell him to fuck off. He knew Tsunade wouldn't have paid him anything, and would certainly not have given him Naruto, but their response was so different. This one wasn't afraid to tell it like it was. Inoki burst out laughing. After slowing down his flow of thoughts, his laughter zapped his granddaughter out of her frozen trance, and it didn't stop until a couple of minutes passed. I thought you were going to come in a much humble way considering the look you had when came here. False security maybe, Inoki said after his outburst. I could have, Naruto admitted, but if I had done that it wouldn't have solved anything. I don't want incidents like this happening again, and if I don't make both of you realize that you're to blame for the deaths of your men, you would just do it again. Kuratsuchi has to look at things from my and Amagekyu's point of view as well. Naruto looked at the woman on his right. I respect your love for your village, and I know you'd do anything to remove anything that threatens it. What you fail to understand is that you're not the only one who loves your village. If Konan had matched her army towards Iwa with the intention of invading it, would you have slapped her and told her to return home? Kuratsuchi gritted her teeth in anger and bitterness. She knew full well that if it had been her in Naruto's position, she would have killed them all while enjoying herself. In the meantime, she would have done far worse than what he did. The realization only made her angry, not at herself but at Naruto. It had to be his fault. For Agaki, you're not bad, Inoki said mildly. Was it all that you wanted? Naruto shook his head before responding. I am truly sorry for the loss of your men, Kuratsuchi. I know that as a commander your subordinates' care is in your hands, or you failed your task again. I am truly sorry. Kuratsuchi's whole body heated up as anger begun to reach a new high. Just by looking at his eyes she could see the sadness in him, and she could tell that he was truly sorry. But the reality only infuriated her further as it threatened to shatter everything she believed. She refused to accept his honesty as well as apology. It changed nothing. My actions resulted in some families losing their source of income, and if you allow me I can ensure that those families don't suffer financially because of all our choices Naruto offered. We don't need your pity, Kuratsuchi retorted. Naruto merely smiled comfortably in response before offering his verbal response. It isn't pity, dear, he said. You're also wrong. I don't wish to do this for you, but for those who lost their loved ones, so there is no you in the picture. Consider this as me taking responsibility my own actions. Kuratsuchi interpreted his words as I am doing what I can to make up for my actions. What are you doing? That didn't please her and left a bitter taste in her mouth when realized that she had been so focused on her revenge that she completely forgot about those people. I will not give you the chance to clear your conscience, she finally said. Naruto didn't appear down by her response. In fact, his smile widened. As long as you show that you truly care by taking care of them, I won't have problems, and I definitely won't be forced to send money at night just to ensure that they are not starved. Seeing that Naruto was easily getting under Kuratsuchi's skin, Inoki intervened. Was that all? Naruto nodded. While you carry some truth, I refuse. Your name will remain in the bingo book, and since I have now dealt with your firsthand, I will even increase your bounty. I see, Naruto started. I will not lay my life for you to take, in any attempts on my life will be repelled, as well as any attempt of invading Amagakure again. He then stood up. When I chose to wear this robes, I told myself that I wouldn't commit any unnecessary bloodshed. My hands are already bloodied, hence these robes are blood red, but that is enough. I may end up killing again, but no more will they be masses. I will no longer protect by killing, but I will protect by other means. There's enough space to lock down those who can't be civil without killing them. As President of the UN, I pardon you this once for your actions. If you do something like that again, I will not kill your men, but I will take them before a disciplinary court. They will be charged and sent to prison. I will have no problems in dragging both of you before a court of law. Inoki narrowed his eyes. Are you threatening us? Naruto shook his head. No, he said. Kuratsuchi, revenge is a disease that will eat you alive until you die. It does nothing but robs you of your happiness, and it will make you miserable. Just look at yourself. You've already forgotten some important values about life. You no longer smile as you used to. Ask yourself why. He gave her a sad smile. I truly hope you will soon understand all that I have said. Perhaps if you do, we may become friends. Jaini. He flashed away in a yellow flash towards the mark on Rio. I'm going home. Kuratsuchi spoke through gritted teeth and walked away. Konoha, Naruto isn't coming back anytime soon. He said he was staying behind in Yuzu and wishes to rebuild it and make it a home to those who've lost their families and those without homes. He also stated that given his vast responsibilities, Konoha shouldn't expect him anytime soon. Jiraiya had taken a pause at the next punchline. I would rather be surrounded by people who look up to me for protection and for a better life than around ignorant people. Those were his last words. It has been 6 minutes since Jiraiya said those words, and 7 minutes since Tsunade turned mute. He had expected her Usually outburst of what, but it didn't come. It was almost as if she was expecting something like this to happen. She had remained deadly silent, as though her worst nightmare had come to a reality. Jiraiya hadn't uttered a word or even disturbed her as she kept her unmoving expression. He didn't really want to be in the end of another beatdown by the Godame Hokage. It was very heartbreaking even for him to hear the blonde say that he had chosen to rebuild Uzushiogakure. He had thought that Naruto and Konoha had a future, but that future didn't seem to have any hope, because if Naruto successfully rebuilds Yuzu, he would be tied down within it and wouldn't think of returning to his home. While it was a bitter pill to swallow, Yuzu was also his home, and much more of a home than Konoha. It wasn't his dream for Naruto to leave Konoha. No, he didn't even think that Minato would have wished for Naruto to choose this path. Even so, he wasn't doing anything evil, so he had no doubt Minato would have been proud of his son and would have given him all his support in rebuilding Yuzu, but he couldn't be proud as Minato would have been. He was proud of Naruto's founding of the UN, but his new choice didn't please him, and it would certainly not please the council. The villagers wouldn't be touched by his choice. They seemed happy to know that he was away from them, but Jiraiya still believed that Konoha needed Naruto and Naruto needed Konoha. He could do everything he wanted to in Yuzu right here in this village, and given Konoha's status, it would only make things easier for him, and he would win the support of some people by doing more good work while they watched. But Naruto had chosen, and there was no changing his mind. It was his fault that things had come to this. If he hadn't abandoned Naruto back then, if he had acted like a godfather to Naruto, none of this would be happening. Naruto would have grown to be a loyal shinobi to Konoha, and perhaps he would have worked well to change the villagers' opinions about him. His foolish choice to run away had brought upon this situation when things had looked well between him and Naruto. He thought all was okay, but he had been wrong, very wrong. Tsunade opened the lower left drawer and took out a picture of Naruto. It was taken just after she had returned to the village. He was wearing that large grin, and those eyes of his glowing with naive happiness. She saw her family in him. He saw a grandchild, a son. Even Jiraiya was her longtime friend, but Naruto had become like her family, something she really wanted. Shizen was there, but no one was quite like that brat. Kakashi says he is returning to his former self. Tsunade finally said. Her eyes were still locked on the frame, and her tone revealed none of her emotions. Jiraiya actually frowned at her tone, but he wiped it off as he responded to her question. Yet he started calmly. He is not quite there yet, but he is getting there. He did think it was somewhat of a mask though, but he wasn't going to say it aloud, not when it was mere speculation. Naruto was capable to many things, but he didn't think he would put on that kind of a mask to fool everyone. However, with everything you could never know. Tsunade smiled sadly. I wish I could see that smile of his once more, she said. He means so much to me, Jiraiya, even though I yell at him. I love him. He is the reason I even came back to this godforsaken village. I can't really imagine what it would be like without having him as my soon-to-be successor. Jiraiya could make out that she was hurting, but she was surprisingly keeping it together. Getting hold of her emotions has never been Tsunade's quality, but she was doing it far better than he would have expected of her. To say that he was surprised wouldn't be a great exaggeration. He knew firsthand how much Naruto meant to the woman. This is why he was honest with her about the reality of the situation. It wouldn't do any good if he had withheld any other information from her. I still wish that he return one day and live those words. One day I will be Hokage one and become the greatest, surpassing me. Even Yoname. Tsunade's sad smile deepened when she thought of when she first met him. He was learning the Rasengan, and she hadn't thought that he would master it in such a short time. She nearly cried, perhaps may have even shed a few tears when she thought he'd died during his confrontation with Kabuto. She recalled how at ease she was when his heartbeat became normal again since he changed his name. Most things about Uzumaki Naruto were discarded. Jiraiya was at least thankful that there was no bad blood between Naruto and Konoha. Tsunade may have threatened to arrest him, but he'd told the blonde that the Godame was just worried and nothing of that sort would happen to him, and that he could return any time he wanted. Unfortunately, Naruto turned him down in favor of his new dream. Me too, Jiraiya said. We should visit him someday. Perhaps your visit may drill some sense into him and make him reconsider about rebuilding Yuzu. The Sannin offered with a small smile. Perhaps we should, Tsunade muttered, losing herself in deep thought. Again, this time I will beat him hard enough that even the Kyuubi will have a difficult time healing him. Some anger was starting to surface now in her tone and eyes. Jiraiya was certain she was going to explode any time soon, hence his decision to change the subject. What do you think happen if Naruto succeeds in rebuilding Yuzu? He has enough power and allies to make it happen. Well, that wasn't much for changing the subject. They were still on the same train. Naruto had Kiri and the Wind Country behind him. They could support him in the rebuilding of the former peaceful village. The blonde did not appear to struggle financially. If all the projects his UN seems to be willing to start are to suggest anything. He hadn't asked any of the UNA members to supply any funds for the time being, which meant he had what he needed to begin with all the projects he was intent on starting. Surely they were going to demand millions, and he will eventually dry out. It would be interesting to see if Tsunade would be willing to be helped. He highly doubted it though. Tsunade shook her head, banishing any wayward thought of Naruto sitting behind a desk within his own office, and Yuzu Umbu bowing at him saying, "Namake-sama." She dared not have seconds of those kinds of thoughts. The only village Naruto was going to lead under her watch was Konohagakure no Sado, the village his father died to protect. Besides, the elders wouldn't allow it to be as he wants. As they would say, the Kyuubi is a property of Konoha. That won't happen. I won't allow it, Tsunade said firmly, while Jiraiya merely shook his head at her stance. What is expected of us anyway within the UN? I mean, you're part of the disciplinary committee, and Shikaku or Shikamaru will be sent to the Judiciary Committee. I don't know for sure, but both committees are stationed in Uzushigakure. Naruto said, since not everyone will be able to be at Yuzu all week, we will either be required to meet every weekend or Tuesdays and Thursdays. This is for the Disciplinary Committee. The Judiciary Committee will have its own schedule, but I think they will only be meeting once a month, Jiraiya said. Within the UNA nothing has been said as of yet. We're still going back in December or the 3 of January. It is only then we will know. The 5th Hokage nodded. It would have been a lot better if he was here to explain it all himself. The Toad Sage wisely decided against commenting on the matter. Training Ground 7. It wasn't even 5 years ago that Naruto was shouting something while simultaneously sending Sasuke a not so subtle competitive glare. Naruto was always competing. Perhaps it was because the Uchiha always made the blonde look bad, but when Naruto became strong, it was Sasuke who was looking up to the blonde. Kakashi had known that Naruto's rapid growth would spur in some action from Sasuke. If he was being blunt and speculative, he could say the only reason Sasuke's desire to leave was strengthened wasn't because of the cursed seal, it was because of his jealousy towards Naruto. Despite it being a couple of years, it felt like it has been ages since he last saw those two glaring at each other within this training ground, with Sakura in the middle while he simply chose to watch from the side. The memories were slipping away under the tsunami that was threatening rip apart everything he tried to build. No, everything was already lost. He had achieved nothing. He couldn't even look at one of his students and say they are what they are because of his great work. Naruto had become wonderful without him. Even the growth that made Sasuke feel threatened wasn't because of his hard work, it was because of Jiraiya. Sasuke had been trained well by Danzo. He may have also seriously trained the Uchiha, but he didn't hold any of his teachings. Sakura had improved rapidly to the point where he didn't want to be unfortunate enough to be at the receiving end of her punches, and that wasn't because of him, it was all Tsunade's work. He had failed as a sensei. Minato sensei would be disappointed. At least he could still smile at the fact that Naruto was doing well despite his own shortcomings. He may have failed, Jiraiya may have failed, but whoever had trained Naruto had done well. The blonde was working towards a change in the elemental nations. He had failed Naruto before, and he wouldn't fail him again. Obito's eye was going to be used to protect the blonde and ensure his, and by extension Minato's, dream comes to life. He would support the blonde to make up for his losses. What gave him the utmost confidence in believing that Minato would support Naruto's dream was that the dream was to make this shinobi world a better place to live, and he was happy, proud. Even still, since Naruto had decided against returning to Konoha, it was unlikely that he would get much support from the Hokage, who was certainly and firmly against the idea of rebuilding Yuzu. He had no problems with it. It was after all making a difference in the world. Kakashi Guy's rather loud voice uprooted the Jonin from his flow of thoughts. He was sitting down the ground leaning against a tree trunk while his precious was on his left hand. In all truth, he wasn't even reading it. You look down, my friend. Kakashi sighed and closed his book. Friend? Yes, Guy was definitely his friend. In fact, he was much more of a friend than anyone. What are you doing here, Guy? It better not be one of those challenges the man was always looking for. While they did well to uplift his spirits, he really wanted to settle down his thoughts. I was looking to challenge, to rival once more, but I see that you are in need of a friend. Guy then flashed one of his smiles, before leaning against the same tree as his eternal rival. Kakashi was tempted to roll on the sarcasm by saying what gave that away, but he swallowed that unnatural thought and looked down as he spoke. Naruto isn't going to return to Konoha, the Jonin said. Even Sasuke was not returning to the village. He had fled again. According to Naruto, the Uchiha is on a path to find his brother. I see, Guy said, and thought he didn't sound the least surprised. The fact Kakashi rightly pointed out, you don't sound surprised by this revelation. It is as though you were expecting it. The copy Ninja said he was certain that Tsunade was still keeping it within their little circle until she could speak to the blonde herself, no doubt to try persuading him otherwise. You forget, my rival. I spent more time with him along with Lee than anyone. He always trained with us each day he was in the village. No doubt Lee was going to be saddened, especially with how much fun they used to have while training. The boy was going to miss his training partner, and Naruto was definitely a good influence on Lee. Lee may have been excellent in taijutsu, but he was mediocre at best in other areas. The worrying thing was Genjutsu, and Naruto had been helping his beloved student in the area by the usage of seals. Oh, another reminder of his failure. If he had been much more of a sensei to Naruto, the blonde would have trained with him. Then guy the taijutsu expect was a better sensei than him. That he couldn't deny. Everyone would agree with that thought. Don't be sad about it. Kakashi guy said Naruto's choice to training with us was because Lee and I offered more to learn about taijutsu. Guy paused for a moment. I knew that he would one day leave this village to follow his dream. Why? Guy smiled before he responded. When we look at things we restrict them to Konoha as our only care, but his view is not through the window of his apartment. He looks at things from above. He shared his dream with us, and I liked it. Naruto's dream was bigger than Konoha. Kakashi acknowledged that much. It must have taken a lot for him to make the choice to leave a village his parents died protecting, but then again it was the same village that made him suffer because he was Jinchuriki. Perhaps, Guy said, stroking his chin. Naruto once told Lee these words. Lee, being alive means having the freedom to make a choice. You must always exercise your free will, and you will always feel alive. As a shinobi of Konoha, you have a duty of protecting the village, but if you devote your entire being to that, you stop living. I am no longer a shinobi of Konoha, and if I leave I may be called a traitor, but that is okay. What matter most isn't what the world thinks of you, but what you think of yourself and what is in your heart. Even though I am no longer a shinobi of Konoha, I will always fight to protect what my parents died for. Lee, you must always follow your heart and ideals. Do what you feel is right, and you'll never be miserable with your life. Time skip. Filling Yuzu with people was going to be a long process, but Naruto was content with having a few people. If he could just have a few families in the island, it would be easy to protect them as well as look after them. There would be many people since he had to accommodate UN Academy students who would be living within the island. The plans to build the academy within the Fire Country had failed, and so in the end he'd chosen to build it within Uzushigakure. It was a lot better this way since he could look after the academy while in the confines of his wonderful ancestral home. The academy was already being built by thousands of his clones. To speed up the process, he only needed a professional builder to show him direction and the blueprint, and he could do everything on his own. The same could be said about the new homes he was building around the UN's buildings. What he had decided to do was build different districts of buildings around the UN's building. Not each building that would surround the HQ would be homes for civilians, though the homes would surround some parts the UN's buildings. A small portion would be left as the Market Street or shopping district, followed by the hospital, civilian academy, UN academy. Another lines of homes for police forces, his own home, Yuzu's tower, and the last buildings would be for more civilians' homes. Over the past days he's been looking around in the Fire Country for a good location to build the UN Police Force HQ, and for those without homes he was also on his way towards the Leaf Village to meet with Hyuga Hayashi on clan matters. Well, it involved the man's clan. Naruto dropped down a tree and landed down the ground. What do you want, Orochimaru? He demanded with narrowed eyes. He's been within the Fire Country for a few days now, but he hadn't thought that the snake would find him so easily. Even though he wasn't exactly staying at one place, the snake Sannin appeared from the ground just away from Naruto and stood in front of the blonde, hands folded across his chest. The eternal grin was present on the snake's face. Is this how you greet me now, Naruto-kun? I thought we were going to be collaborators since our last meeting, Orochimaru said with a playful stone and a smirk. I don't really have the patience to deal with you, Orochimaru, Naruto stated, impatience rolling over his tone. More to that, the snake was also an evil incarnate that shouldn't be allowed to live in this world. Orochimaru was a malicious and insane snake that needed to be chopped off from the tree of life. There were some things that he was willing to dirty himself in dealing with while he was prepared to arrest evil people and put them into prison. For several years Orochimaru wasn't the one to be taken to prison. His sins were far too great, and living him in prison was only giving him more time to plot. Perhaps his associates could be given prison time, but the snake was headed for execution. The trial has already been set and judgment has already been delivered. My Naruto-kun, when did you become so impatient? Orochimaru asked, still using the same playful tone, but Naruto merely gave the snake a blank look. You're no longer fun. Perhaps Itachi would have been a lot pleased at this. My meetings with him were always interesting. A pity he's dead. The snake paused for a moment to read Naruto's expression, but he got nothing but a blank stare. Aren't you a little sad about it, especially since he was killed by your former friend? Is that all? Orochimaru frowned, albeit inwardly he hadn't thought Naruto could wear a steel-cold mask like that. The damn mask hadn't even slipped or twitched even for a second. Well, someone has grown, he said, licking his lips. Aren't you worried that Sasuke will become stronger. Because of this I mean if Itachi told him the truth he most likely awakened the Manjikyu after killing Itachi, or he will be told about it by Jubi. The regret and grief he will feel for killing his brother will cause the Manjikyu to awaken. Either way he awakens the eyes. Naruto shook his head silently. I'm not worried about Sasuke, he's far from what worries me. Besides, even if he awakens the Mangekyo, he will most likely turn blind quickly because of the overuse of the Dojutsu. There was no doubt that the Uchiha was going to be reckless with the new power, and he wouldn't waste any time in waving it around for all to see. What didn't worry him was that even if Sasuke tried to use Itachi's eyes, he would find it to be an impossible task. Since Itachi died with his eyes, it wasn't known to either Uchiha, but Naruto had an idea that Itachi knew he'd done something to his eyes to make sure that they never fall into the wrong hands, even if the hands were his own brother. Whether Itachi liked it or not, Sasuke would be a threat if he was allowed to gain his eyes. Since he'd failed in trying to convince the older Uchiha from fighting Sasuke, he'd taken an alternative path. Orochimaru seemed amused more than anything, but the fact that Naruto gave him no emotion for him to read frustrated him. I wonder if Jubi will allow that to happen. He knows all I know about the Sharingan, which is much more than Sasuke, and he is far more intelligent to allow that power to go to waste. The seconds are ticking. Orochimaru he'd entertained the snake far enough, and he no longer wished to continue with that. Akatsuki's hideout. The snake shook its head as if to correct itself. Obito's old hideout. What of it? Naruto gave away nothing for the snake to read. He'd been trained far too well to easily slip and give the snake something to use against him. No doubt if his mask slipped, the snake would only gain more confidence and continue to press on whatever he was aiming for. After Obito died, I went there. Kabuto had already located it before the fake Madara was killed, but what I found was that it was empty. Everything that used to be there had been cleaned with no trace remaining. It seemed as if nothing ever existed there, and now it has become nothing more than a cave. And you're telling me this because although he would never admit it to any soul, Orochimaru was having a difficult time and was biting his tongue to stop himself from cursing that stone-faced brat. He always enjoyed reading the emotions on his praise expression, but since it all began, the blonde wasn't giving away anything. This was just no doubt a student of Itachi. That man couldn't be read by anyone and wore the mask Naruto was now wearing without failure. Don't you know anything about it? No, Naruto lied with a straight face. Ho, I thought you did. I never get things wrong like this. Naruto didn't buy the act Orochimaru put in, since it was pretty much obvious to him that the man knew what he was talking about, but he was just not going to admit it. Do you know what Jubi is planning? I see. Naruto nodded to himself. He must have come to you about it, and you're coming to tell me what he is planning so that you can brochure a deal on the way forward. You have no interest in playing anyone's game, and the only game you will participate in is a game you started. Other than that, nothing is going to happen. You catch on fast. Orochimaru said. So what do you say? Sasuke has teamed up with Jubi. Why don't you team up with me? I'm sure you and I can make a good team. I know Jubi went after the Three Tails recently, and I know what he is planning. So Orochimaru, there is nothing you can tell me that I don't already know. Naruto started walking away. He stopped once he'd walked past the snake. I will not work with you, and never will. What you must know is that your days parading that mask of yours are numbered. Very soon I'll execute you on the law of the UN for your crimes against humanity. Orochimaru laughed sinisterly when the words were registered inside his head. You can't kill me, Naruto-kun. No one can. I have become immortal now. Naruto only looked at the Sannin at the corner of his eyes. Just because you now have the Sharingan. Laughable. He didn't sound amused, not even a little. Of course, your intelligence was top-notch. The man always kept him updated with whatever he could get his hands on. The fact that Orochimaru had a Sharingan was known to him, since he had stolen it from Danzo. He had raided Root HQ before Jiraiya went there to make use to the forces left behind without a master. The Sharingan isn't the only thing I have, Naruto-kun. Orochimaru said. I now have a perfect body that is able to hold my soul without restraining some of my powers. I can now use all my abilities, as if he wanted to show how powerful he'd become. Orochimaru blurred out of sight in pure speed, but he never reached Naruto because his movements were put into an embarrassing halt by an invisible wall. The Sannin stumbled back at the hard contact with the invisible wall. He glared at Naruto after regaining his balance. That was truly embarrassing to him. You're not the only one with special abilities, Orochimaru, Naruto said before blurring out of sight, leaving Orochimaru alone. How did Naruto know he had the Sharingan? He hadn't revealed his eyes to the blonde, nor anyone who could have told him about the new development. Then who could have done it? Konoha, Konoha Senpu. He only heard those words before a foot crashed into his skull coming out of nowhere and sent him flying. The experienced taijutsu user was quick to recover from the surprise attack and was surprised to see who'd attacked him. Naruto-kun. He wasn't too sure, hence the name was put with a question mark. He wasn't expecting the blonde to hear, of all places, not with the rumor that is crawling around Konoha about him. How are you doing, Lee? He turned to Face guy who was standing still behind him guy he finished before he could even turn his head back to face Lee. The student on the green beast was already before him. Lee jumped on him and gave him a bone-crushing hug. Naruto almost shivered when he felt Lee's tears wetting his crimson shirt from the back. "It's good to see you, Naruto," the youth exclaimed before letting him go. Lee grinned, flashing the blonde a thumbs up. "It's good to see that your flames still burn brightly," he said, referring to the surprise attack that sent him flying. Naruto smiled. "Good to see you too, Lee," he said, "but my youthful flames never burn brightly as yours," he added before taking a pause. "I see that you haven't been slacking from your usual training." It was still early in the morning, and he knew well enough that these two always trained at this time of day whenever they were not outside the village on a mission. It was often that he trained with them to help improve his own taijutsu and keep his body in top condition and reflexes sharp. There was no better teacher in taijutsu than the taijutsu master. Hokage Itachi was an excellent teacher, but he was no Hokage. "I'll never catch up to you if I slack off from hard work." Lee's response was almost predictable. "We haven't tested out flames of youth against each other in some time. What do you about a sparring session?" Although the Chunin was asking, he was already on his taijutsu stance, looking quite ready for a good battle. Naruto disappointed the small green best by shaking his head. "Some other day," the blonde said. "I came here on some important business, so sparring isn't within the schedule. Since I knew you guys would be here, I thought it was best to see you first." He'd come here for a meeting with the head of the Hyuga clan to talk about Hanabi. It was no problem getting into the village gates, as he just had to produce the documents that showed he indeed had clan matters to deal with. Konoha's structure was made in such a way that even the Hokage had no power over clan activities. For today, he was a guest to the Hyuga clan. If there was an impending issue between him and Konoha, they would have to set it aside today. Because of the immunity of being a guest to the Hyuga gave him, of course, the meeting between him and the head of the Hyuga clan was going to be kept a secret from the public eye to avoid a backlash from the villagers of this village. Since Naruto wasn't oblivious to their talk behind his back, he knew that if they know that he was here for the Hyuga clan, they would start suspecting that he was conspiring something with the clan. However, they wouldn't do anything stupid, since the Hyuga was the most powerful clan in Konoha, and their Byakugan greatly enhanced the village's power regardless of how dense and stupid they were. This was something they didn't miss. Hayashi had only allowed the meeting to go ahead because he knew he wasn't planning anything against Konoha. If that was the case, the man wouldn't have allowed him to come to his clan compound. Clan head were bound by responsibility to think of their clan first before the village. In everything that Hayashi did, he always brought Konoha second to his clan. It was the same for most leaders of clans, because the clan was their immediate family and their position dictated that they do so. Oh, it seemed like all the happiness in Lee had been sucked dry when he gave his response. No doubt the moment he realized it was Naruto, his blood had already started rushing for a good battle with the blonde, and he was being denied that opportunity. The reaction from Lee did nothing but amuse Naruto. He could never really get used to such looks, and each time he turned down the apprentice of Guy, he always gave the look, and it always amused him. To Lee, being denied a chance to spar by someone he considered a worthy foe was no different than being denied water to calm his thirst. Spars with Lee weren't so much as friendly anyway. There was always damage and pain despite it being fun. The Chunin really took things to the extreme every now and then. "Don't be so down, Lee," Naruto said, his back eyes watching Guy, who was walking towards him. The man's heavy right hand slammed onto his right shoulder. If it wasn't for the fact that he was used to it and he packed more muscles than he let on, he would have winced upon contact. "So what business do you have, Naruto-kun?" Guy was unusually a bit serious in his question, despite the usual mask of happiness fully formed on his front. "I want to take my students to Yuzu so that I can train them," Naruto simply said. He wasn't going to say more than he'd said. His tone suggested that more than anything. Guy nodded, but asked nothing further on the subject, as he knew when to ask, when not to. "Well, it's good to see you, but you should come often to visit us. Lee really misses you, and without his eternal rival close by, he can't have someone to test how far he's going with his training. Well, I could, but my situation restricts me to do so. I will however come by when things are cleared, when I can." That is, Naruto said with a small smile. He took 2 steps towards Lee and placed his right hand on the boy's shoulder. "Keep strong, Lee. It appears he truly isn't here to stay," Guy thought, watching Naruto and Lee talk when the two were training together. They were almost like brothers. It was a pity that Naruto no longer stayed within the walls of Konoha. With Naruto close by, Lee always had someone other than him to pick him up in his quest to become strong. Still, his beloved student was still doing well on his own despite losing his friend and training partner. "I guess I should leave before Tsunade sends her Umbu after me," Naruto said, not particularly to anyone. "It was nice seeing you guys," he said before he could flash away. Lee asked a question that was worrying him. "Shikamaru says you may never return to live in this village. Is it true?" Lee truly had troubles accepting this news. He really wished that Naruto could return to Konoha, and for things to return to as they were, though it would never return to the genin days. It would perhaps return to those days when he had a training partner and a friend in the art of taijutsu. Naruto smiled sadly. That is truly, he said honestly, I have a few responsibilities now, and a new home. Living in Konoha isn't an option, but that doesn't mean that I have become an enemy of Konoha. I am just following my dream conviction, and some parts of my heart. Oh, brightening his smile, Naruto spoke again before he flashed away. Brighten up, Lee. I may have left Konoha, but you're still my friend, and I have not left to cause chaos, but I've left to see through to my dream. You can't use chakra, but you still have the dream to be the best. Many chakra users ridicule as being naive, but you continue to move on towards your dream. The same can be said about me. I'm following my dream, but I am called a traitor by some people because of it. But I worry not, because I know where I am going. I am not lost, Lee. You're not lost, but our paths are taking different turns. But that doesn't mean we must be sad, because we can no longer as each other as much as we used to. Know we must be happy, because both of us are still trying to achieve our dreams. Lose your smile when I become evil, and I will lose mine when you give up on your dream. With that said, the blonde was gone in a flash. Without waiting for Lee to offer his response, Guy smiled brightly. Wonderful words, full of youthful passion. Hyuga compound, it has been long, hasn't it? Hinata, Naruto asked, walking beside the beautiful Hyuga, who was a classmate at the Ninja Academy and a comrade while he was still a shinobi of Konoha. Coming into the compound had to be discreet until he met up with Tsunade. It would cause troubles if he left without seeing the 5th Hokage, and it wouldn't really do well to his own burdened heart. Tsunade would only become furious with him, and it was a good chance to speak to her about other matters, since Sasuke was no doubt going to come after Konoha in the near future. He had been surprised when he saw that Hinata was the one to welcome into the compound. He had expected as such, as she was a friend and someone he was most familiar with other than Hanabi and Neji. It was nice to see her again, and he was glad that she was handling herself well beside him. She was never able to contain herself while he was near, but he was glad that she could control herself well enough to talk to him without stuttering like a broken record. Hinata smiled. It hasn't been that long, she said. Really, it hasn't been that long since they spoke. Days were just flowing a bit faster due to the things that were occurring. A lot has just been happening in between, she added as they turned into corner within the compound while heading towards the clan head's residence. I guess so, Naruto, in a thoughtful look. He'd done a lot of things since leaving Konoha, so many things that one would do even in a year. How have things been around normal around me? But nothing much has changed, Hinata said before pausing. Father says you're very busy. Well, you know me, I never settled down, Naruto responded calmly. Between rebuilding my ancestral home and running the UN while trying to build relationships between nations, I don't get much time to relax. Well, if he divided much of his work to others and have his clones do some work, he could even spend a full day swimming in the wild trying to catch fish. But having his clones do his work posed stress to his mind, because all their memories would be deposited into his mind, giving him a lot of work to do and sorting them out. It was a lot better when the clones he'd summoned were doing the same task. You've gotten stronger, Naruto added, eyeing the Hyuga at the corner of his right eye. Neji helps me a lot with my training, and Kurenai-sensei always helps, Hinata responded a bit happily that Naruto had acknowledged her without even seeing her fight. Well, he could have heard the rumors, and her father praised her a bit these days. Naruto walked a bit faster than the girl. Before standing in front of her, he poked her chest towards her heart before giving her a warm smile. Hinata almost fell down on her, but due to Naruto's actions he'd touched her unexpectedly in that place. Naruto only laughed when the girl struggled to cool down her steaming face. He returned to her left hand before speaking. I don't mean in terms of skills, he said. You've always been strong, Hinata. You merely lacked conviction and a strong heart. When I say you've gotten strong, I mean your heart has become strong. Thank you. A little bit of praise, and she was already going to her old self. Naruto merely smiled, though. Just stay strong in the as you are, and you won't waver constantly as you used. A strong-willed heart strengthens your attitude, mind, and sharpens your skills. Hesitation brings the skills you have to nothing. Though you were skilled, because you hesitated you were seen as nothing. But since you're able to talk to me like this, I'm glad that you've grown comfortable. Silence settled, and as Hinata realized something almost made her heart falter. Naruto had laughed in front of her at her embarrassment. When was the last time she'd heard him laugh? When was the last time he smiled so warmly? Everything was different, but he was still Naruto. Are you going to stay till later? Hinata asked. She had her own agenda here, and it had taken all her willpower to get the question off her chest. Given the thought behind the question, Naruto guessed she had something, but he wasn't here for that, and besides he had to travel to Kumogakure after leaving here, and since he wasn't going to teleport, it was best to leave as early as possible. No, he said, I have other businesses that I must deal with elsewhere. Oh, Hinata mouth a bit down. Was there something you wanted? And no, the response so quickly, like she was Denying something. Naruto looked amused by her response more than anything, but he didn't indulge his amusement any further. Regaining her composure, Hinata spoke. Seeing his look, you look a lot happy than when we were before. She said, I guess the environment I find myself in is conducive for my happiness, and the path I have chosen makes me happy. Besides, why would I be sad while walking beside you? A complete opposite of Anko and Mei. Naruto realized, when Hinata's face changed color. Aren't you happy? I am happy. It is just different. Without Naruto clan around, Naruto arched an eyebrow at how she referred at him, but he said nothing about it. It is expected. There is no one like me after all, he said. Don't base your happiness on a single person, Hinata. Don't draw your happiness off one person, because one day you'll be miserable when that person disappears. Instead, base your happiness on something like your work and goals. Your dream is supposed to make you. Naruto trailed off when he found Hanabi dressed in formal attire standing beside the entrance of a room he presumed his meeting was going to be held. Naruto-sensei. Hanabi bowed politely while greeting the blonde, and she prayed that Naruto doesn't ruffle her hair as it would only mess her up. She was relieved when he just smiled at her, adding with a small bow, hello Hanabi. Naruto smiled warmly. I see you've been well. She didn't look any hurt or unhealthy, judging by her physical state, and the report he received told him that she had been doing rather well. Every now and then he liked keeping an eye on his students just to see if they weren't slacking off the training regime he'd given them, since he could no longer train them personally because of the current unresolved situation. He didn't want to neglect them, hence the training regime he'd left behind for them to use. I have, Hanabi said, welcoming the blonde inside the room. Konohamaru misses you. He doesn't stop saying your name when we train together, wearing an amused mask. Hanabi added, he was even thinking of running after you. The Hokage threatened him to keep him down. No doubt the incident had been amusing for the stoic Hyuga to look like that. If anything, Naruto assumed Konohamaru had budged into Tsunade's office and demanded that he be allowed to leave Konoha in favor of following him to Uzushigakure. The Godame Hokage would have no doubt refuted the demand, but that wouldn't have stopped the boy from trying to leave. Tsunade must have almost likely come close to snapping his legs just so he couldn't run away. I have sent a clone to see him, Naruto said. I just hope he doesn't pounce on the clone to make the clone puff out of existence. Well, if that happens it will be a disappointment, he said in thought. Once he entered the room he noticed that Hinata and Hanabi followed him inside, and Hayashi was sighted alone on a futon. He assumed that the two clan heads' daughters were going to be involved in these talks. He had no problems with that, and it actually pleased him to see that Hinata was being acknowledged by her father enough to allow her to stand in while they talk along with Hanabi. It was a nice change, and it did well for the Hyuga's confidence. Hanabi nodded but offered no verbal response. She went on to sit on her father's right side while Hinata sat on the left side. Hayashi motioned for Naruto to sit before they exchanged pleasantries. Hanabi and Hinata will be joining us. They won't be involved in any decision. I merely wish for them to see how such talks are handled. I hope that will not be a problem to you, Hayashi said, keeping that composed look most Hyugas seem to possess. Naruto merely smiled and waved his right hand dismissively. I see no problem. He tilted his head a little as he added, the fact that Hinata is allowed to enter such thoughts simply means that you've acknowledged her. I have to say I am quite pleased with that. Hinata has grown over the past years, and I have seen how useful she has become to the Hyuga clan. Hayashi gave his response while Hinata smiled a bit at her father's words, even though he had said it like it wasn't much of a big deal and that he wasn't happy that she had grown. Naruto was silent for a few moments before speaking. In the past Hinata hesitated a lot. She couldn't even strike down Hanabi in a simple sparring session that guaranteed no death. That simply meant she couldn't strike even an enemy. Ultimately she wasn't fit to protect the Hyuga clan. No, with her hesitation to strike she couldn't protect anything. Bearing the responsibility of a leader means being able to stand firm and strike down anything that poses threat to what you must protect. Hinata couldn't do any of that. It wasn't to say she wasn't skilled, it wasn't that she couldn't defeat her younger sister, it only meant that Hanabi understood what had to be done in order to protect the clan, hence she excelled where elder sister failed. You gave her a cold shoulder, thinking that she would harden her heart in the experience, but that didn't work. It wasn't that you didn't care about her well-being, you just wanted her to grow so that she could do what was expected of her. Naruto paused and looked at Hinata. Your father was loving and kind to you before he started training you, wasn't he? Memories from her childhood. Hinata had really forgotten many of those because of the cold shoulder her father gave her. Even when she was failing he'd always had her do it again and again. It wasn't because he was punishing her, it was because he wanted her to succeed. But that isn't to say discarding her was the greatest choice a father could do. No, it was the worst possible choice that could have driven her away from the clan. Nodding, Hinata spoke. Yes, he was, she said. I assumed as much, Naruto responded, taking his eyes off the elder sibling of the children of Hayashi. No matter how much a father acted, it was not possible for him to completely discard his own child. Like he didn't care. Every father cared. There were just limits, and fathers were willing to harden their hearts and act perfectly like they don't care. He wasn't going to comment that Hayashi had stopped being a father to Hinata. It wasn't his place to say, so you understand this lot better than I would have thought. No, I didn't even think you would understand. He showed no surprise on his face despite being surprised at the fact that Naruto could understand his reasons. As a leader, Naruto smiled. It was a bitter smile. None of the Hyugas needed X-ray goggles to see that my father abandoned his responsibility as a father the day I was born in favor of fulfilling his responsibility as a leader. He left me alone with a mountain-sized bijou inside my gut. I lived like an orphan, parentless, and like a rotten piece of meat that constantly strolled around the streets of this village, much to the dismay of the villagers. He must have known that tomorrow wouldn't many pleasant things for me, but yet he died with a smile. Many leaders aren't good fathers because of their responsibilities. They will always sacrifice something to protect what they lead. The bitterness in his tone didn't transcend into his expression. It was perfectly neutral. Besides, I am leader myself. I should understand this better. Hayashi was surprised that Naruto would so willingly say something like that to them. Well, when he thought of it, it wasn't anything serious. He was a clan head and a member of Konoha's council. He already knew what the blonde had said. Hinata was his former classmate, and she was a friend. Hanabi was his student, and both knew that he was a Jinchuriki and the child of Namake's Minato, the Yoname Hokage. It wasn't something any of them didn't already know. Nodding to himself, Hayashi spoke. How is the rebuilding going? He asked. Naruto had said he was a leader, and aside from the UN, he was leading the rebuilding of the former great village Uzushigakure smoothly, and a lot faster than I had first thought. The exterior work should be done in the next 7 days, and it may take 4 or less to do the interior work. Naruto responded calmly. It wasn't a secret to anyone that Yuzu was being rebuilt, and as long as he wasn't telling any secret, Naruto had no problem telling someone like Hayashi. How far was he come with the rebuilding? You work fast. Hayashi said. You must have hired an army of employees to rebuild the village. Naruto smiled. You'd be surprised if I told you there are only a handful of professional builders in the island, he said. With my clones I learned quickly, and I did build the buildings that stand now on my own. So with that experience, guidance from a professional builder, and 3,500 clones, rebuilding a village is quite easy if you have all needed materials. Hayashi blinked. 3,500 clones? He shook his head. Even when he was just a kid, Naruto could create up to 2,000 clones. It really shouldn't be a surprise that he could create 3,500 laborers on his own, but that meant he burned much more chakra, since he had to give them more chakra to last for hours. Just how much chakra could one human have? Hayashi cleared his throat. Can we begin? Naruto nodded. As you already know, the United Nations has a military force that is called the police force. We're currently busy recruiting those who are willing to be part of the police force from around allied nations. I'm sure Jiraiya has already given you a clear description of what the UN's police force will be doing. Yes, Hayashi nodded. There is also an academy that I am building within Yuzu. The academy will train future UN police force members. What exactly will be taught in the academy? Hayashi asked. There would be no difference if they are teaching the same thing as they do in the academy here in Konoha, unless they offered training that was different. Then he would be interested in it. Politics, history, elemental nations history, and law. The law of the UN rules and its principles, and law in general. The physical part of the training will be all forms of shinobi arts, kenjutsu, taijutsu, ninjutsu, and jinjutsu, and medical ninjutsu. Classes will be from morning till evening. Morning till noon will be all theory, and then in the afternoons it will be physical work. Hanabi is a well-discipled child, and she understands principle well enough. She is still innocent, and I would like to take her to Yuzu until the training is done. I want her to head the UN's police force within the region of the Fire Country, Wind Country, and all lands towards the mist. Of course, she has to grow up first within the police force. She won't be forced to kill anyone, but only use force if necessary to subdue a suspect and bring her or him to the right place for judgment. Naruto said. Hayashi was silent as he absorbed the words. This was a good thing for the clan. If the UN became stronger than what it was and his daughter becomes a high-ranking official in the organization, it would elevate the Hyuga's status, as she would be representing the clan. Hinata could lead the clan on this side, and there wasn't even a hidden agenda from Naruto. This also gave his daughter a chance to escape the shinobi life and live a somewhat less corrupting life. Hayashi looked at his daughter at the corner of his eyes. Naturally, her expression gave him nothing. He looked back at Naruto. You've done remarkably well as Hanabi's sensei in a short time, but I must still wonder why you're not asking anything other than permission to make my daughter a powerful shinobi. Naruto smiled. It sounds good to be true, huh? Normally Hayashi would even have to give something in order to attain something like this, but he wasn't asking anything, but that is the truth and nothing else. You've trusted me with your daughter's care once and I was faithful. I'm sure you can do it again. The academy is in Yuzu and you're saying that classes will be from morning. How will that be when she is here? For now, Hayashi didn't comment on the faithful part. One will get good people to take care of all the students as they will be staying in Yuzu within academy hostels. I will however return the students to their parents on weekends. Parents who wish can move to Yuzu along with their children, and those without parents will get permanent residence within Yuzu. Naruto explained lightly. Maintaining something like that will require a lot of funds, and considering that you're rebuilding, can you afford it? Could this be the catch? Would Naruto donation from him? Naruto nodded. Yes, it will cost a lot, he admitted. However, since Yuzu is close to the sea and there are various types of fishes that aren't found anywhere else, I have discussed trade agreements with a number of nations and a number of merchants. I will become a supplier of fresh fish from the sea. I've also dragged myself into the shipping business because of Yuzu's location. My ships can move the whirlpool country towards the wave water and lightning country. These are just some ways I've thought to help with cash injections. That type of business also creates employment for residents of your village, Hayashi added. Naruto was taking advantage of the village's location, and with his teleportation jutsu he could deliver the goods just hours after being caught. Keeping true to his promise, fresh fish from the sea. Without employment, villagers won't be able to find money and shop owners won't sell anything. The village also suffers economically. Naruto said, do not hurry to make a decision, but it would be good for my preparations if the response comes before November ends, as all building will be completed by then. Hayashi nodded without question. About the other matter, I've analyzed the seal's structure and can remove it as well as create new safe and invisible seal, Naruto said before pausing. Forgive me if I may sound out of turn, but was the caged bird seal really created to keep the secrets of the Byakugan? I mean, if so, shouldn't all members of the clan be caged with the seal? Even a member of the main family can be caught while on a mission, and since they don't have the seal, the Byakugan will be easily exploited. From my view, the caged bird seal looks to be nothing less than a seal created to control the actions of the Branch family. The past generations must have known that the Branch family would eventually rebel because of the sickening treatment from the main family and thought of a way to keep them in line. Hayashi stared at Naruto for a few tense moments. Hinata seems to think that as well, he said, seemingly worn out by the thought of this matter. But you're indeed right. My experience with Niji has led me to see that the Branch family loathes us, but I can't change that. However, I do hope these two can. An unknown location. He should have been happy that he'd finally killed the brother of his. He should have been thrilled and feeling whole again that he'd avenged the Uchiha clan, but Sasuke still felt empty and the thirst for vengeance was still clutching his throat menacingly. He'd killed Itachi, but it appeared that his brother wasn't the one to satisfy his thirst for revenge. Konoha was the thing that he needed to destroy to get his revenge. That godforsaken village forced his beloved brother to commit a massacre. They forced him to turn into a traitor and kill everyone in his clan, and they'd forced that unbearable burden on his brother and then discarded him away. Those foolish Konoha people talked crap about his brother even after he'd done everything in order to protect the damn village. Ungrateful fools. He'd sworn he would destroy that village and then restore his clan, but the first thing he had to do was to kill that brother. Stealing Blonde, the thought of that bastard made Sasuke clench his hands hard enough to draw out blood. He couldn't forgive the fact that Naruto had been trained by his brother. His brother Naruto also knew the truth, but he'd kept it from him, treating him like a foolish childish. He would deal with it and show Naruto just who the child was. If you're not careful, that Uchiha hatred will overcome you before you can even master the full power of your eyes, Shinji said as he appeared beside the Uchiha. While he wanted a puppet, it didn't help his cause. If the puppet was a massive hatred, it could help if he could direct where the hatred was channeled, but in the long run it did no good for his plan. Sasuke would eventually start discarding his orders in favor of satisfying his thirst and hunger. Sasuke didn't say anything until a few minutes had passed. What do you want? The Uchiha demanded, as though this wasn't the same person who'd led him to meeting his brother. Shinji was being treated as nothing more than a stranger when he discovered the truth and killed his brother. Everything became new. He was reborn. He had no friends, but only enemies. If he was going to start a new yet same path, he needed to know who his enemies were, or else he would be destroying everything that comes down on his way. Is this how you greet me, or even thank me after all that I've done for you? You also knew the truth, but didn't tell me, Sasuke stated. He didn't need to question whether the man knew or not. The truth was obvious to him. Don't you think it was better if you'd known the truth from your brother? Shinji asked, stepping closer to Sasuke. He placed his right hand on the Uchiha's shoulder before speaking again. Come on, I want to show you something. They disappeared in a flash of black after those words left Shinji's mouth. The next scene Sasuke saw was a village in production. He was standing on top of the largest building, which was like a castle and was surrounded by a large wall. Outside those walls were hundreds of people putting in wooden buildings around the place. This was new. He'd never seen a place like this before. What is this place? This is my empire, Shinji responded. I've been building it since I escaped from Orochimaru. My stupid actions outside here held another motive: draw the attention of the elemental nations towards my actions. While I was busy fooling around, these people were building this place. Why did you bring me here? You no longer have a home since you now plan to destroy Konoha, but you still want to restore your clan. I offer this place with no history of bloodshed or any treachery towards your clan to be the perfect place for you to restore your clan, Shinji said. In return, I will continue to help you out in destroying Naruto and Konoha. Sasuke was silent for a few moments before he finally responded, let us go now. I want to test my new power on that idiot. There's one condition though, Shinji said. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. What if you want to go by your choice? You'll have to either defeat me or cut off my right hand. If you can't do that, then we will go when I say so. Does that sound fair enough to you? Hokage office. Tsunade's finger tapped on her desk with impatience written all over. She was waiting for Naruto to finally show his smart face before her. She hadn't bothered to have her umbu drag him to her office, as it wouldn't make things easy, and for her umbu to drag the blonde, they would have to first catch him. First, knowing him, he wouldn't like to be caught too easily. She even imagined that he would leave without coming to her just because she failed to catch him, even though she didn't send any word for him to come before. She didn't have a single shed of doubt in her heart that he would come. Hayashi had only told her a few moments before the blonde arrived that he was having a visitor. That sick bastard, he was using his clan privileges against her. No doubt they were talking about something that benefited the Hyuga clan. If not, Hayashi would have never allowed for the talks to be held within his clan's compound. With Naruto of all people, he'd taken a risk by allowing the blonde to come, and Tsunade knew well enough that Hayashi wasn't stupid. Still, for the past hour she's been waiting for Naruto to appear before her, but he wasn't coming. She found it even frustrating when one of her umbu patrolling around the Hyuga compound informed her that Naruto had the time spar with both daughters of Hayashi. He was doing that while she was waiting for him, and she knew every well that he was aware of her situation. He could have chosen to come here before playing love-dovey with the Hyugas, who was his family, the Hyuga or her, unless he was planning to marry. No way. Tsunade crushed that kind of thought with all internal strength she could muster. There wasn't even a trace of the thought ever existing within the prints of her memories. That brat, I bet he is even having tea with the Hyuga now. Tsunade more or less grumbled while she continued to tap on the desk. The more the minute counted, the harder she tapped, and the more impatient she became. He'll come. Jiraiya said. There was no usually warmth or anything of that nature on his tone. He wasn't trying to calm her down or anything. It was more like he'd said those words out of habit. Then, seeing the need to calm the Hokage before she could match over to the Hyuga compound and demand audience with Naruto. If Tsunade wasn't caught up in her own thoughts, she would have noticed Jiraiya's strange response. He is taking his sweet time, and I can't push all my work just because of him, she said, her voice growing louder. But Jiraiya said nothing in response, making the fifth turn towards him. He'd only returned to the village 3 days, and what she noticed about him these past days was that he didn't stay away from the village for too long. If he was going to meet one of his contacts, he would go and do that before returning back quickly. Well, at times like these, it was best that all of Konoha's prized assets stayed within the village. Before anything major happens with Naruto recruiting shinobi, she was careful not to have him prize away any of her top shinobi. What's wrong with you? The Senju demanded rather than asked, but it wasn't intentionally done. It was because of her current mood that those words came out strongly than intended. Nothing, Jiraiya responded with a wave of his hand. I've just been thinking a lot these past days, the Toad Sage said. Besides, he was still suffering from a massive heartache because of all the heavy drinking he did last night, and he'd been forced to wake up early because of his former teammate with a headache. He didn't want to make much noise lest he make it worse. Hello, Tsunade Ba-chan. Jiraiya. Naruto's voice stopped Tsunade from responding to Jiraiya. The Godane narrowed her eyes at Naruto's cheery demeanor, but before she could even speak, it had already disappeared and replaced by a look she hated from him, impassiveness. I was beginning to think you were no longer going to come, Tsunade said, much more contained, though her tone was still strong as her stern gaze. Why would I commit such a crime of leaving without seeing you, Hokage Sama? Naruto asked, his head tilted a little. He seemed to shrug his shoulders before speaking again. I see you've been well, though. How have things been in Konoha? Any new challenges? Are the elders still giving you a hard time? Cut the crap, Naruto, Tsunade said in a hardened tone that didn't surprise Naruto the least. What is this about Yuzu being rebuilt? Are you abandoning Konoha just like that? I'd thought you'd only left just to deal with that event you hosted, but now I hear you're going to rebuild Yuzu. Have you freaking lost your mind? Naruto didn't even blink as his expression remained impassive, giving nothing for the remaining Senju to read. A few moments passed as a tense atmosphere settled in within the office before the blonde responded in an even tone, I don't know about losing my mind, but it is what it is, Tsunade. Yuzu is being rebuilt and soon shall be completed. And there is nothing you can do to change that. I'm not abandoning Konoha, and I'm not forsaking my home. This village never felt like my home to begin with anyway. Tsunade didn't even as much as flinch under his gaze. In response she kept her stare. You're just a brat. Naruto, what do you know about leading a village? Have you even forgotten that Yuzu was destroyed by villagers who were threatened by its power? Do you want the same thing to happen again? I didn't come here for this kind of talk. Tsunade Naruto started. However, get this over your head, I'm not going to return to this village, but that doesn't mean I've abandoned it. Yuzu is my new home, and I have friends who I know will not stab me in the back or abandon me when I need them most. Watch how you speak to me, Naruto. Tsunade growled from the lack of respect from Naruto. To her surprise, though, she hid it well. Naruto apologized. I apologize for not addressing you properly, Hokage-sama. I am getting too familiar with you, it seems, he said calmly. Then do you have anything? Jiraiya, Naruto's full attention was now turned to the Toad Sage, who hadn't said a word since he appeared in the office. Have you heard anything about Sasuke? It was one matter that was disturbing him since the Uchiha seems to have disappeared off the grid. No matter how hard he searched, he couldn't find the Raven head anywhere. It was almost like he had become a ghost, and knowing how much of a danger Sasuke could pose, the Sannin was greatly worried. I guess it won't do any good if I withhold any information from you. Naruto sighed, keeping his impassive mask intact. Sasuke recently fought with Itachi in one. He has also somehow awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan and is working with Jubi. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes. What aren't you telling me, Naruto? Although Naruto's mask didn't slip even for a second, Jiraiya knew that Naruto wasn't telling him everything. He knew the fact that he didn't go into detail about everything didn't mean that he wasn't aware of the details. It was most likely that he just didn't want to tell. Nothing you should concern yourself with, Naruto stated with a shrug. I must warn you, he added. Sasuke will most likely come after Konoha in the quest to destroy it, but before that he will most likely come after me. Knowing him, things can happen in any order. Nevertheless, be wary, because he will come, and you know the reason why he will be coming, don't you? Naruto didn't bother to deny it. He simply nodded. Yes, but I can't tell you, he said. Telling them the truth behind the Uchiha massacre would be a sin on his part. Itachi may be dead, but he'd promised he wouldn't tell anyone the secret, and he wasn't going to say anything. Even if Tsunade promised to torture him if they wanted the truth, they would have to get it from Sasuke, who was the last Uchiha in this world. However, the Uchiha was most likely just going to go emo on everyone, thinking that they knew the truth. The elders knew about it, so they would have a reason to fear if they were told. Why don't you care anymore about this village, Naruto? Tsunade asked, looking straight into his eyes. The information is vital for the safety of the village. Do you think your father would approve of you withholding information like that just because you have rebelled? The emotional game will not work, Hokage-sama, Naruto said, never changing the pitch or the intensity of his tone. It has become quite annoying every time either of you say something like that. He sighed before adding, I've told you of the impending threat, and I would like to move on to another matter. What I would like Shizen to teach medical ninjutsu in Yuzu 2 hours a day. After that she will be returned here to continue her work as your helper, Naruto stated rather straightly. Tsunade stared at him, trying to see if he was being serious or not. When she saw no sign of amusement, she spoke. That isn't a bargain. You can't expect me to give something coveted within Konoha for free. It isn't for me, but for the UN. Work for the UN is supposed to be voluntary, Naruto said. But Tsunade didn't change. What do you want in return? While I can spare Shizen for 2 hours a day, I don't think I can do that unless there's a good deal. Medical ninjutsu was something that Konoha ranked best in, and if she allowed Shizen to train other students from other nations, she would be giving them a chance to compete with them, and in their world it was always better to hold the edge in something. Even after I told you that this is for the UN, you still say things like that. How shinobi-minded of you. Tsunade took that as an insult, but Naruto just continued, I just want her to teach the fundamentals and the basics in application. She doesn't have to teach any secret jutsu you invented, so I will say it again. What is your price? You're not going to buy any help from her when she does name your price, Jiraiya stated, glaring at Naruto. You're just testing just how much she is willing to give for the good of the world. You did say offering help to the UN was voluntary help, so I would assume others who've offered help didn't demand anything as compensation for their efforts. Naruto nodded, appreciating Jiraiya's fast grasping of the situation. We're trying to create an environment of good faith and where people can give without expecting anything in return. It will be difficult, but the fact that the shinobi that will be trained through the UN's academy won't be from a certain nation but from all nations makes it easy, as all efforts strengthen all nations. Besides, the students produced through the academy will mainly be working solely for the UN, not within villages from which they were born. Jiraiya was silent for a few moments before he responded. That is understandable, he said. If it was up To me, I would allow Shizen to train your future students, but Haim, it is your decision and I will support whatever choice you make. While Tsunade was busy with her thoughts, Naruto stood up. I came here because I thought it was a good opportunity for Konoha to do some good with its resources. However, if you can't, there are other people good enough with medical ninjutsu to help. It doesn't take a great to create a great, but hard work, understanding, and the determination to succeed. He paused before changing the subject. Soon enough the UN will begin a raid through the hideouts Orochimaru has planted throughout the elemental nations. Your expertise will be needed. Jiraiya, smiling a bit, he said as farewell, well, that is that I will see you when I see you, Ja-ni. He disappeared via gusts of winds that was enough to notify Jiraiya that the blonde hadn't teleported away from the village Hokage monument. Seeing Iam and her father had been such a blessing to him, no matter where he went, no matter what he did, he would never forget what those two gave to his life, what meaning they gave to the miserable life he so lived within the hateful walls of this miserable village. They gave him a chance to be part of their small family, no strings attached, no lies, just pure honest and the desire to help and the heart to care. With the Sandaime there were many strings that were attached. While the old man truly did care, he didn't do enough, and he was full of lies and so much scheming that bothered him. The Ikaraku meant more to him than anyone inside this village. They were his family more than anyone, and Iruka was right up there. They may not have had a great start, but over time things worked out perfectly. But the Ikaraku did more. How many times did he go to eat there when he didn't have any money? How many times did he go there to seek comfort when the glares and sucked away all the happiness he had? How many times did he feel at home when they were laughing with him and encouraging him to do well at the academy? Yes, Iam was like a real sister, and Tucci was like his grandfather. Screw Jiraiya. The Sandaime gave him nothing at all. He only decided to budge into his life now that he had grown. Where was he when things were hard? Having fun with random women around the elemental nations, while the cold stares of the walls within his cave for an apartment gave him no comfort. Life was miserable, yet he maintained a smile given the recent developments in his current mindset. Everything had become in past tense. Although he still cared, things were different, and he couldn't run over to the Ikaraku to get some ramen so he could lift his spirits up. Naruto looked at the bowl on his hands. It was still steaming. How many times did I feed on you to satisfy my hunger? How many times did you become a lifesaver when there was no money to buy other form of food? How many times did your godly taste lift up my spirit when I was low enough to feel the heat from the pits of hell? Naturally the food gave no response. Regardless, Naruto felt a little disappointed that his savior didn't have the voice to respond to him. He shook his head before such thoughts drove his mind to the borders of insanity. It wouldn't be beneficial to the UN and Yuzu as well as all his other allies if he started chasing after butterflies. His mind needed to remain sane as it could be, and he had to stay strong for his dream to become a thing of tangibility. Itachi the Uchiha was now gone. Without being in Konoha and being in Yuzu, it meant that he was all alone again. He refused to shed tears because Itachi died smiling. He died without regrets, but he no longer had a brother. His relationship with Gaara was different. It wasn't the same as the one he had with Itachi. There was no one like Itachi. His disappearance from this world meant that there was a hole now opened inside his heart, and knowing that it was because of a person who couldn't do any good other than serve his own selfless goals, it somewhat made him bitter that Itachi was willing to die for that godforsaken brother of his. Whether Itachi would forgive him or not, he had ensured that Sasuke doesn't get his hands on Itachi's eyes. Even if he does, he wouldn't be able to use them. Yes, he would be stuck with his original eyes and would certainly go blind someday. Most likely the blindness would kill him. Sitting at this place with a bowl of ramen, thinking of his miserable life, Naruto could only ask one thing: Mother, Father, where are you to comfort your son? There was no answer. He knew before even asking that his parents were dead long ago. Before he was even a day old, his parents had already passed on to the other world. He could only carry on the heavy burden on his life alone with no one since his brother was now dead. It was times like this that his mask slipped and a more miserable expression settled on his face, but that did nothing than invite a menacing laughter from his tenant. And I was thinking that you'd become dead inside of you, that you no longer cared enough to have that look on you, Kurama stated. Of course, he'd been watching his warden since it became obvious that Itachi had died, and he was more interested in seeing how he would react to it. Is there any particular reason you ignited this conversation? Naruto asked smoothly, but his tone displayed no emotion, a clear betrayal on the miserable look on his face. I was thinking that you might break down and become that pathetic human you once were, but that didn't happen. There was disappointment more than anything within his tenant's voice. I must commend you though. You managed to wear your masks without showing a damn thing of your grief. Even when that wretched snake brought up the subject, you showed nothing. Whether that was amusing or not, Naruto didn't waste his thoughts on wondering why the bijou looked amused. I'm still waiting. The amused look disappeared in seconds, only to be replaced by a serious look on his face. I see you've been having thoughts about Controlling my power. Naruto didn't deny it. I pale in comparison to the other Jinchuriki, and for me to be level with them your power is needed. That isn't to say I can't defeat them without your power. Kurama narrowed his eyes a little. You mean because you have those eyes? Naruto didn't deny anything. I have what I need in my arsenal of cards, but what you must understand is that your power is necessary for some enemies. While he was confident in his own abilities, Naruto knew that it wasn't a sin to make use of all the power that was available to him. I'm willing to give you my chakra when you need, but the Bijou trailed off when Naruto raised his right hand. The only way your chakra can leave you without your will is if you're out of your cage, and giving it willingly. I can tweak the seal to ensure that you can't take over despite being released from the cage. Naruto said, you know me well enough, and so I'll say if you give me your chakra, when needed I will release you from the seal and ship you into one of the islands that surround the water country. I will do that only after we've dealt with Orochimaru. Sasuke and Jubi. Kurama stared at Naruto for a few moments. What he did know about his host was that he wasn't lying. He was dead serious. Still, freeing me will kill you. My mother lived even after you were extracted from her by Obit, and I have her blood. Besides, I can support my life through the Geto Mazo, tapping into its life force during the extraction. That way my own life won't be in danger. Naruto turned away from the Bijou. If you don't think that is good deal, tell me yours and we'll work something out. I must speak to someone outside. I'm guessing since Tsunade was settled when I went to her you didn't talk to her about this. Naruto said to the person standing beside him. No, the person said with a shrug, but I left a clone behind. It should explain everything after we've left. I know this is going to cause trouble for you though, but there is no other way. If I asked for her permission she would refuse, and would be even willing to break my legs and seal off my chakra to keep me from leaving. I can see her doing that. Naruto said and thought, I've already cleaned everything in my father's house and concluded all my business here. I hope you've packed everything. The person nodded. Good, Naruto said, standing up, his left hand holding the bowl of ramen and the right hand was placed on the man's shoulder before they disappeared. In a flash of yellow moments after the two left, there was a voice that shattered all windows within the Hokage Tower. What?